All right, shalom. So I know the title might be a little bit disappointing for some people, but it's probably not what you think. So let me just explain. So this past homeschool year was more difficult than the years before. So, of course, I had a baby around July, and not around July, in July. And then after my time of separation, we started right back into started homeschooling. And obviously, homeschooling and taking care of a child, and after you just had a baby, it can be difficult, right? So I I just had a baby. You're going through all kind of different things after you have a baby. There's so many different things you're going through. So after you have a baby, there's a lot that you're going through. So having a baby and then also having a 1 year old who was not quite to like right at that half mark. So he was about 1.5 at the time. I'm having to watch after him and also educate the older children. This particular year was just a little bit more I don't want to say stressful, but it was a little bit more overwhelming. I did it. I was able to get it done. I successfully homeschooled and took care of everyone properly, but it did take a lot on me this past year. It took a lot out of me. So by the end of the year, I was pretty much stressed and overwhelmed and just like, I'm tired, I'm done, and it wasn't like it was just like every day was just really bad. It was just, I had my days. Obviously, I just had a baby. I'm having to watch over when I'm nursing. I'm having to sit down and I can't move and get up as fast as quickly as I would like when I'm nursing. So keeping after my 1.5, 2 year old. He's now 2. He turned 2 in January, but I'm watching over him. I'm having to constantly watch him. I'm not able to, I'm having to get up and be quick with him. So that was a little bit difficult, trying to make sure that he was occupied and not getting into everything, and also homeschooling the older children. And, the older ones are older, so they're able to do a lot on their own. I can kind of give them their instruction and they can get the work done on their own with just not as much guidance as the smaller ones, but obviously they still need some guidance. So I would give them the 101 time during the younger ones' nap time, and we would go over work or whatever we needed to go over while they were asleep. And it was functional. It was able to work, but it did just take a lot out of me. So by the end of the year, I was a little overwhelmed. I was explaining to my husband and talking to him, and he was just like, well, I don't want you to be stressed out. I don't want you to be overwhelmed, so I was letting him know that I was thinking about possibly putting them back into the public school. Of course, he was just like, well, I don't want that to happen, but if that's what you feel like you need, I don't want you to, be too stressed out or have too much on your plate. So I'm just going to leave the decision up to you, and whatever you feel like you need to do, I'm going to let you do that. So I contemplated. I was thinking about it. I was going back and forth with this idea for a while, and then I was putting it into works about putting my children back into public school. I had a all-girls school picked out for my daughter. It's been up and running for a few years. I've been hearing a lot of good things about it, so I went through the process of getting her started into school. Same thing for my 2 older boys who would have been who's in special needs, and who would be in first grade this year. So I was putting that all into process. Now the school the boys were going to be going to is a school near us. We're zoned for that school because that's the type of area that we lived in. We have to go to our zone school. Now we've been to this school before. My daughter and my son went to this school before, and we've been there, done that. I didn't like the school then. I know I'm not going to like it now. So during this whole process, I'm battling between these 2 decisions in my heart, and I know I don't really want to send them into public school, but on this other end, I'm like, oh, I'm stressed, and I kind of just need a break. So I was on that type of battle with myself, really. And I went ahead and decided not to do it. So I set up the situation to where I was going to do it, But I just was so convicted. I was hearing as my husband was explaining it to another brother, I heard him on the other end, and I'm just like, the things, because he was, just explaining the situation and listening, overhearing the conversation. I'm just like, I just felt very convicted and felt like, why am I doing this really? You know what I mean? I don't really have to. I don't need to. This is something that I had to get back into the mind frame of how I was when I first started to homeschool. Now, I do understand that there are a lot of sisters who either they just don't want to homeschool or they don't have the opportunity to homeschool. Me, I have the opportunity. I can be a stay-at-home mom. I have the opportunity to homeschool and stay home with my children. Why am I really not taking advantage of this opportunity? Why do I feel like I can't handle it? Because I know that I can. I did it last year. It was just a little bit more stressful. And sometimes I do put more stress on myself than anything, like than the children, than my husband, than anything else. Because of the way that I want to do things, I put more stress on myself. Sometimes I battle between two choices, or I like don't want this to happen, but I also, you know what I mean? Like I'm battling always. So instead of just giving into one thing and sticking to it and pushing forth with it, I'm always doing this thing to where I'm stressing myself out more. So I just had to, this past summer, I just took a break. We haven't done anything. Now, sometimes we do a worksheet here or there, especially if I just need them to sit down and be quiet for a little bit. I will pull something out and give it to them. But for the most part, we've taken a break. And with doing that, I have gotten a lot of stress relief. I feel so much better. Sometimes I just need to take a break. You know what I mean? And not get so overwhelmed, because I really do it to myself. I really do. So after going through the process, I was just like, I just can't do it. This isn't something that I want to do. I already know how the system works, and the school that we were going to send the boys to particularly just wasn't the type. And it's not like the teachers are just bad, but it's just the system, like one of those type of schools that they just don't really care about, don't worry about, and they just throw the kids to the side type of situation. And I didn't really, so knowing that and knowing that how the system works, I didn't want to just do that just so I can kind of get a little bit of a break, because I love being around my children. I love educating them. And I already knew once I did it, because I was already thinking, I just can't wait for this year to be over because I want them home with me. And I'm just like, well, what am I doing? Why am I even doing it? Like, when I was working and when I would go to work every day, and when I was working, I was always stressed out then, just because I didn't like to be away from my children. I felt like I wasn't spending enough time with the children. I didn't get enough time. I felt like I was just working and going to sleep and not spending any quality time with the children. And now that I have that, I just had to get back into the mind frame of how I was in the beginning, and I just needed a break. And so the day that I was supposed to go school shopping for the children, I was just like, I just can't even do it. I just can't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I told my husband, he was like, well, well, this is what we planned in the first place. This is what we wanted. We've always we wanted to homeschool. This is, what we talked about. So, we went ahead and went forth. We continue to homeschool, and that's what my decision was. I just couldn't do it. So I'm just sharing this to just anybody else who is out there who go through these things. Like, homeschool and training children up isn't always easy. It's definitely doable, and it definitely has more highlights than not. You know what I mean? Of course, I have 6 children, and they're young, and I have some older ones. But I mean, my oldest, who I'm homeschool, is just 11. So, she helps out so much, and I'm weaning the baby too, and he'll be weaned. I'm weaning him now, so by the time we start back school, he will be fully weaned, which will help out a lot. I won't be as stationary. I'll be able to get up and move and do things like I need to do. So I'm just sharing this for any of those people out there who, you have your days or your stress or whatever the situation is. Like, we have just take a break. Just take a break. And I don't mean like take a break and send them back into a system that you don't really agree with anyway. I mean, just take a break and just not do anything. Like sometimes we put a lot of stuff on ourselves, and um we just kind of need to relax. I know sometimes as mothers and as wives, we take on a lot, and sometimes we stress ourselves out more. Like we're called, this is what we're called to do, to, you know, um, keep up with our household. And it's not always an easy thing training children up, and you're dealing with different personalities, but it's, I mean, I have a ball in here with my children most of the time. But of course, you have those times when you just have a baby and you're trying to keep after them. You have your times where you're like, listen, everybody needs to sit down, be quiet. I don't want to hear a peep for an hour. You have your days like that too. So I just wanted to share this for anybody else who have those days, and just to know that you're not alone, and that we're out here doing it. So you know what I mean? So, and I was happy that my husband didn't like, um, wasn't kind of just like, no, you're gonna do this and this and this. This is what we agreed to, which he could have. He definitely could have, and maybe should have. But I'm glad he was able to let me be convicted and come up, make the decision on my own. Let me kind of go through those motions so I can see, like, you know what, this isn't what I want to do really anyway. So I was happy that that played out the way it was, the way it did. And definitely brothers and sisters who are helping and giving feedback and giving advice and things like that definitely was helpful. Because sometimes you are just overwhelmed, and like I said, sometimes we put it on ourselves. We have a lot. Our job isn't easy. Being a mother, you take on a lot. You have to take on everybody's emotions, and everybody's problems are kind of held on you. And not saying that the husband doesn't do that either, or anyone else in the household, whomever you might have in the household, doesn't take the responsibility. But a lot that does fall on the woman a lot. So we are definitely strong in that way, because we're able to tough it out. And even when it's just life. So I'm happy that I chose this decision, and I'm happy with my decision, and I'm happy that I'm continuing to homeschool. Taking that break was definitely needed. I feel so much better after taking that break. I don't stress myself out. I'm not like driving my own self crazy by trying to do a million things, or I'm not doing that. Like, because I really stress myself out. So don't stress yourself out. Keep it simple, keep it easy. But just wanted to share that and hopefully encourage anyone else out there. And yeah, we doing it. Shalom.